Hi, this is another guided step solution for the 2017 exam, the TCE Accounting exam. This is question 6, and I'm going to walk you through the way that I would approach doing a income statement and a balance sheet. So what you can see in front of you is the trial balance, and the questions are here below. Now you'll see that I have prepared myself, and these balance day adjustments you should make on a separate piece of paper. I would not go and risk just putting them in straight away into your trial balance. What I would do is put them on a scrap piece of paper and then methodically adjust your trial balance before you then go into your financial statement, which you can see here. It's all set up, and I'll show you how and when I'll put these things in there, and you can see also that I've got some ratios already calculated. Alright, so let's make a start. So the first thing I have to do, I have to look at my first additional information. Depreciation to be charged and 30% of equipment, diminishing balance, and so I've got 2 lots of depreciation to be done. So the calculation is 30% diminishing balance on the equipment. So I've got to find the equipment. So the equipment is up here, 132,000, and because it's reducing balance, I have to make sure that I find the accumulated depreciation on the equipment. There it is, 10,200. So the calculation I make is that minus that multiplied by 30%. So I'm just going to put that in here. So it's 132,000 minus 10,200 and multiply that by 0.3, 30%, I beg your pardon. There you are, that's 0.3. When I put that in a calculator, I get 36,540. That's the total amount of depreciation for the year. Similarly, I have to charge the depreciation of office computer. That's a bit simpler. 20% straight line. 20% a year means 5 years for those people that are confused about the 20%. So I need to find my office computer, which is there, $3,600. I divide that by 5. So I'm going to put that in. That's 720. The next item is to deal with the service fee revenue that's been received ahead of time. So simply here, it's $1,400 that we're going to debit service fee revenue, and we're going to credit unearned revenue, which is a current liability. The next dot point, office wages accrued at balance amount of that. So that is an accrued expense, so 640. So debit there, and accrued wages, as I've called it, or accrued expense, doesn't matter, 640. Stock take here, the next dot point, reveals inventory of 7,200. I must make sure or check to see what our records say. It says 7,300, so therefore I have to make a $100 difference because we've lost $100 somehow, or they're not there, or they've been stolen. So I would debit my adjustment and credit inventories to reflect the lower level that is in our records. Lastly, it says that we had to decide a provision of doubtful debts to be $400. I must compare that to the current provision, which is, it doesn't exist yet. So that's what you must do to check it against the current provision, if there is one. It looks like this particular business has just started off, so this entry is going to be relatively simple. So we've got to debit bad and doubtful debts $400, and the provision, that's the amount that we're going to take off accounts receivables, $400. So you can see what I've done, that I have made my entries, and now I've got to make sure that I adjust my trial balance. And you can see up here what I've done. In advance, I've prepared myself for the extra accounts that I have to adjust or for the first time, and then any others I adjust up here that are existing. So 36,540, that is this amount here, this debit there, and what I have to do, I have to credit the same amount to here. So that plus that's going to be 46,740. Now the rule here is that if it's a credit and a credit, you add them together, or debit and a debit, you add them together, and if they're opposite to one another, you take them away. So 36,540, there was 10,400 there already, 200 there already, so I added those two together. So both those items I've ticked off, and I think it's important that you engage in some sort of ticking off. Is crossed them out because I'm using the word processor, but just to say yes, I have put that into the trial balance. Depreciation office computer 720, that is also a new item, so I'll type that in. The accumulated depreciation office equipment is there, so I've got to add 720 to that. Add that on. Again, it's a credit and a credit, they go together. So I've got both these items sorted, and I'm being fairly methodic, but it's important that you engage in this process to ensure that you minimize your mistakes. The next item on the agenda is to deal with the wages. Wages $640, that needs to be increased by that amount. I'm just looking for them up here. There they are. I'll add them on, 640, and I've got a accrued expense for 640. Forgot to put that in. So I've got those two items sorted. Being fairly methodical again. The next item is inventory adjustment of $100. That is another item here. And what I have to do, I have to credit this time the amount. I need to remember that it was a credit to this account, therefore what happens here is that we reduce it by $100 because it's a debit item. It's a credit entry, therefore it reduces it down by $100. So I've got both of those sorted. And lastly, I've got to provide for my bad and doubtful debts. That's a new entry, as I discussed before, so we put those down here. So now I check to see that yes, I've posted all my balance date adjustments to what is now my adjusted trial balance. So this is what I work from, right, to go from here to my my financial statement. So let's make a start. So sales is 535. Less sales returns, and again what I should be doing is to say yes, I've done that. Sales returns is here, 10,500. 10,500. So my net sales is this, and you should be underlining that every time you make a calculation. Now, a lot of you may have missed this, but customs duty is an expense that is incurred in order to getting your purchases ready to be sold. Okay, so it doesn't go into your selling or anything like that. So my cartage, and you've got to be careful about those sorts of things that go into the cost of goods sold. So if it's 17,500 there, that is probably going to be one of the tricky items that you'll see on the trial balance. So 17.5 there. The inventory adjustment was $100 from before, and of course I haven't put in the cost of goods sold, so let's go back and do that. The cost of goods sold is 380,000. So the total of those items is 397, and that's taken away from my net sales, giving us a gross profit of this. So I've got to put in now the other operating revenues. Let me just find those. You can see I found these three different types of other revenues from here, and what I've done also is crossed them off. Now, discount received, if that's unfamiliar to you, it's something that we received. It's something like dividends. It's an income, right? So you should be able to deduct that even if you have never come across this particular term before. There's that one, the interest, and the service fees up there. So I've just crossed them off or ticked them off. So now I'm going to do the other expenses. Now ideally what I would also suggest that you do as in part of your reading time is to put down the different types of assets, liabilities, expenses, revenues, and so on and so forth. So next to cash at bank, you would have current asset for CA, equipment is a non-current asset, and so on. Okay, that's a current liability. So when I go down here, now I'm looking for the sales and distribution expenses, or selling and distribution. You can see that I've identified them already: advertising, other marketing and sales commission. But in your process that I'm recommending that you do beforehand, so there's a selling and distribution expense, and so on and so forth. You would have found them as you've gone through them. So that's a recommendation that I would make to you. I'm just going to pause and put those things in so the video doesn't go for too long. So you can see I've put in advertising, marketing and sales commission. The items that go in here, anything to do with selling and getting the goods and services to the customer. Right, so there's some pretty obvious things to include there. Anything with sales, even if it's a delivery vehicle, freight and those sorts of things, go in this particular section. And you can see that I've marked these off already. So the next section is general and admin expenses. The thing that I would say, the easiest thing to do is to do the selling distribution and do the finance expenses. Anything left should be a general and admin expense, and that's a process you would have gone through as you've gone down. So you can see here that I've already identified the wages, other expenses. These are the things that are not selling or finance. In finance, interest is a common one. Now, discount allowed is the discount, the amount that we allow our customers as a discount for paying early. So that's part of our finance expenses. There's leasing and bad and doubtful debts, so there's quite a few there. So let me just pause and put those in. Okay, back again. So I've put in all these items which I would have identified before, as I told you. Every time I make a calculation, I should underline. So I've got three subtotals underlined there, the total expenses there, giving me a net profit of 77,720, and that feeds in straight away into my balance sheet, as you can see there. It's not liking it for some reason. The net profit is equal to, I don't know why that's changed, but anyway, there it is. Make that nice. Okay, so now I've got to do my balance sheet. Make sure that you put your title on there. That's a common mistake, and it's silly that you should do that. Going back to my trial balance here, $10,600 is the cash, so let me put that in. My accounts receivable is here, $4,200. Now I have forgotten something here. Is the fact that I've got to calculate the provision for doubtful debts to get the net amount. Remember that we've got $400 down here of provision for doubtful debts that we're going to charge, and I've just remembered that I haven't ticked that off either. Okay, so $400, that goes into there. You can see how that works now. $400 taken away from that, so the net amount is that. My inventory, I'm going to get that figure from here. There it is, $7,200. So you can see my total current assets are that. Now I'm going to deal with my non-current assets. Let me just find those. We've got one term deposit here, which is an investment, $40,000. I can see that it hadn't been calculated into my total assets, but I'll fix that in a moment. Maybe it's over here. Yep, there it is. My equipment, let's have a look. My equipment is $132, and what I have to do, I have to calculate the net amounts. So that should be over here, I think. Yep. So less the accumulated depreciation, which is $46,740. Doesn't like that for some reason. Okay. I think this is all not going all that well. So that plus that, the office computer. Let's have a look at that. Where's the office computer? There's office computer of $3,600. $3,600. Less accumulated depreciation of $720. Let's calculate that very nicely. So let me just cross those off. I beg your pardon. The depreciation was $720, but the total is $1620. So I've made a mistake there. I'm only human after all. So let me adjust that though. And you can see how I have worked that out, because I'm using my ticks religiously here, just ticking off everything as I go along. So let me go back to my balance sheet. So this figure here isn't quite right, so let me just adjust that. Let me check for there's any intangibles. I'm just looking here now, my drawings, so that's another debit item I've got to go. Equipment, I've already put that in. So you can see that by me being relatively methodic, I've ticked all these things off. The only thing is there's drawings. I know where to put that. I've got no other items here to put in, so I've got no intangibles. So my total assets here are worth $148,840. So now I've got to start putting in my current liabilities. And they're obviously going to be on the credit side. So let me just tick that one, 69. My GST clearing, that's up here somewhere, $4,800. I had an accrued expense and unearned revenue, which is down the bottom of my trial balance, $640 and $1,400. Okay, that's adding up nicely. Let me just tick those off. Okay, so I've got all these items ticked off. I've got I've got the bank loan to go, and I've got the capital, and I've got the drawing. So everything else you can see has been ticked off. I didn't do that before. Okay, so the bank loan, let's just put that in. The bank loan was, let me just check that, 60,000. Put that in. So my net assets now are worth 75.1. So that's the product of the total assets minus the total liabilities, giving me the total assets. So let me just put in the capital. The capital was 99,580. And the drawings was, where is it? 90,000. Let's hope that after all this it adds up. And it doesn't. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, I've made a mistake. Genuine mistake. There's a number of ways of finding mistakes. So first of all, I don't need to check my adds because it's done by the spreadsheet. I'll look at the difference. That's $14,200. I'll look for that difference, or half that difference. So when I go back to my my statement here, I'm looking for that amount or half that amount, and I don't find it. So what that tells me, if I've already done my adding up, that it is two mistakes. What I must then do is to re-look at all my items that I have actually posted. And one thing I did notice, I don't know if you noticed it when I was putting it in, the motor vehicle lease charge is $12,000, but if you look at my income statement, it's sitting here as $1,200. Okay, I noticed that when I was checking it before when I had a pause. So that's obviously going to get me closer. Now if I go back to the balance sheet, you'll find that I'm out by a little bit less, but I'm still out nevertheless. I'm out by $1,400 here. And I'm looking for an item for $1,400, and I'm getting suspicious about this item here. Remember, that was a balance day adjustment which we completed down here, $1,400. And what I should have done is to credit accrued unearned revenue of $1,400, which I did do here, but service fee revenue, the $1,400, I crossed it off, but I didn't debit that amount to service fee revenue up here. So that should have been $1,400 less. So it's 118,400, 600, I beg your pardon. So there's my mistake. So even though I was trying to be methodical and so forth, but I found that by looking at the difference and finding it's $1,400. So now when I adjust my service fee revenue to that amount, hopefully it'll work out nicely. So if I look at my income statement and put in the correct amount here, everything's adjusted. I've got that there, and look at that. Now I didn't intentionally make that, but for demonstration purposes it's been very good, and you can see how I've worked through that mistake. So just to summarise how I've done that, I looked at the difference, I looked for the difference or half the difference in any item in the trial balance or my adjustment. I didn't find it. So that told me, after I've done my adding up, that I have misposted something or done something as silly as putting 1,200 instead of 12,000 or something like that. So I've got to go through and check all my entries again to make sure I've posted them into the balance sheet and the income statement, and you saw that I found the $1,200, then $12,000, and then I was out by a little bit more. So then I looked for that difference. It was $1,400, and it straight away took me to the unearned revenue, which meant that and then well, what did I do? I did the entry right there, but as you saw before, I didn't adjust the amount in my service fee received. And look, that was just a mistake, and you will make those mistakes as well, but I've shown you for the process, and that is really, really important. Alright, so some other tips that I would give you. Now, that process I went through, if that takes you more than 5 minutes, leave it. That's really important. In 5 minutes, I found 2 mistakes which I have benefited by 2 marks. Now, just the fact that you didn't balance, I would have lost 2 marks and still got 48 out of 50. Now, that's an important thing that you need to realise, is that if you have time, once you've done all your other items of your exam, if you've got 10 minutes left, look for it. But in 10 minutes, you can gain 10 marks. If you spend 10 minutes trying to find it and not find it, you've wasted it. But if you do find it, just say that you do, it might cut into some other time, and you might be a bit short on another section. And that's really, really important advice. Just because I was out or you are out by a certain amount doesn't mean you can't get an A. Hopefully that's been useful to you, and hopefully you'll be able to learn from it.